Chapter 1. I Want Everything. The law office smelled like old paper and burnt coffee, the kind that had been reheated too many times and forgotten on a hot plate. The walls were lined with framed degrees and plaques meant to inspire confidence. But that morning, none of it mattered. Donovan sat on the leather chair nearest the window, his hands folded loosely in his lap, his posture straight but relaxed, too relaxed for a man about to watch his marriage be dismantled. Across from him, Nora sat with her legs crossed, heel dangling lazily from her foot. She looked immaculate. Her hair was styled perfectly, her makeup subtle but intentional, as if this were a brunch meeting instead of a divorce consultation. She didn't look at Donovan once. Her attention stayed fixed on the man behind the desk. Hugh Whitaker had been practicing family law for over 25 years. He had seen screaming matches, sobbing breakdowns, vengeful threats whispered through clenched teeth. He had seen spouses lunge across conference tables and others beg on their knees. What he was seeing now unsettled him far more. Nora didn't look angry. She looked bored. "So," she said, adjusting the sleeve of her blouse, "let's not drag this out. I want the house, both cars, the business, and full control of the accounts." Hugh blinked. Once. Then again. "I'm sorry," he said carefully, leaning forward as if he'd misheard. "When you say the business, the plumbing company," Nora replied smoothly. "All of it." Donovan felt the words land like a physical blow, a dull pressure behind his ribs. The office seemed to narrow, the walls inching closer, but his face didn't change. If Nora noticed anything at all, she didn't show it. Hugh glanced at Donovan instinctively, waiting for a reaction. A protest. A laugh. Something. There was nothing. "Nora," Hugh said, clearing his throat, "the business predates the marriage. It was inherited. That complicates—" "I don't care," she interrupted. Her tone wasn't sharp. It was flat. Administrative. "I supported him while he built it. I sacrificed. I'm entitled to it." Donovan watched her fingers as she spoke. Perfect nails. Pale pink. He remembered when she used to bite them during stressful weeks, when money was tight and the kids were small, and they counted every dollar together at the kitchen table. He remembered patching his knuckles with electrical tape before jobs because they couldn't afford gloves yet. That woman wasn't here. Hugh exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. Even in aggressive settlements, demands like this are unusual. You're asking for virtually all marital assets. "Yes," Nora said. "That's correct." "And Mr. Hale would be left with his tools," she said with a faint smile. "He likes to work with his hands. He'll be fine." The smile lingered a moment too long. Donovan felt something settle deep in his chest. Not rage, not despair. Something colder, quieter, like a door closing. Hugh straightened, his professional calm beginning to crack. "Mrs. Hale, courts look unfavorably on settlements that are blatantly one-sided. If this went to trial, I don't intend for it to," Nora replied. "He'll agree." She said it with absolute certainty. For the first time, she turned her head and looked at Donovan. Her eyes scanned him briefly, as if checking an item off a list. He met her gaze without blinking. There was no accusation in his face, no plea, just stillness. Hugh followed her gaze, confusion deepening. "Donovan," he said carefully, "you don't have to agree to this. In fact, I strongly advise against it." Donovan nodded once, slowly, as if acknowledging a weather report. The house. He saw it in his mind. The crooked porch step he'd fixed 3 times, the pencil marks on the laundry room wall, tracking Maisie and Theo's heights year by year. The cars, one practical, one old, but paid off, both smelling faintly of fast food and wet soccer gear. The business, his father's name still etched faintly on the original filing documents, the logo he'd modernized but never replaced. Everything he was. Nora mistook his silence for weakness. "I've already spoken to my attorney," she continued, folding her hands. "This is the cleanest option. No mess. No drama. We both move on." Hugh shook his head, incredulous. "You're asking him to surrender his entire livelihood." "I'm asking for what I deserve." Donovan's heartbeat was steady, almost annoyingly so. He studied the edge of the desk, the small nick in the wood where someone had once dropped a pen too hard. He listened to the faint hum of traffic outside, to the ticking clock on the wall. Time was still moving. That was good. Hugh leaned back, exasperation creeping into his voice. Donovan, say something. Donovan lifted his eyes. Not to Nora, never to her, but to Hugh. His voice, when it came, was calm, measured, almost gentle. Is that everything? He asked. Nora's brow furrowed slightly, thrown off by the question. Yes, she said after a beat. Everything. Hugh stared at him. You realize what she's asking? Donovan nodded again. I do. The silence stretched. Thick. Heavy. Hugh opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. If you want to fight this, and you should, we can. I can file. Donovan raised a hand. Just slightly. The gesture was small, but final. No, he said. Nora's lips curved, satisfaction flickering across her face. Hugh's disbelief hardened into something closer to alarm. Donovan, this isn't rational. You're entitled to... Donovan inhaled slowly, then let the breath out. When he spoke, there was no tremor, no anger, just certainty. Give it all to her. Chapter 2. Have you lost your mind? The front door slammed harder than it needed to. Donovan didn't flinch. He was standing in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, rinsing a coffee mug that had long since gone cold. Outside, the late afternoon sun dipped low, throwing long shadows across the living room. The same living room his father had once fallen asleep in after 12-hour days. Boots still on, pride still intact. Donnie, his mother's voice cracked on his name. He turned and saw her standing just inside the doorway, her purse clutched to her chest like a shield. Her hair was pulled back hastily, eyes red, jaw tight. Behind her, Boyd paced in like a storm given human form, broad shoulders tense, fists already clenched. What the hell is wrong with you? Boyd barked before the door even closed. Donovan set the mug in the sink carefully. He wiped his hands on a dish towel, slow and deliberate, buying himself a second of silence before the room filled with it anyway. Your lawyer called me, their mother said, stepping forward. He said you agreed to everything. Boyd laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Everything. He shook his head in disbelief. No, tell me he's wrong. Tell me you didn't just hand her dad's company like it was a used jacket. Donovan didn't answer right away. He pulled out a chair at the kitchen table and sat down. The chair scraped softly against the floor. The sound felt louder than it should have. Donnie, his mother said, her voice trembling now, say something. Boyd slammed his palm onto the table. Have you lost your damn mind? The words hung there, heavy and unforgiving. Donovan looked up at his brother. Boyd's face was flushed, veins standing out along his neck. He'd always been the loud one, the protector, the first to swing and the last to ask questions. When their father died, Boyd had punched a hole in the garage wall because grief needed somewhere to go. This felt worse to him. You gave her the house, Boyd went on, pacing again. The cars, the business. You know what that business means. You know what Dad bled for. I know, Donovan said quietly. Boyd stopped pacing. Then explain it. Their mother sat down across from Donovan, hands shaking as she folded them together. That company was his legacy, she whispered. He trusted you with it. Donovan swallowed. The word trusted cut deeper than Boyd's shouting ever could. I didn't throw it away, he said. Boyd scoffed. Sure looks like you did. Silence pressed in again, thick with accusation and fear. Donovan leaned back in his chair, eyes drifting to the hallway where old family photos still hung, him and Boyd as kids, their fathers standing behind them, hands resting on their shoulders like anchors. I sat in that office, Boyd continued, voice rising again. And you know what she said? She said you'd be fine, that you'd always land on your feet, like this was just a game. Donovan's jaw tightened just slightly. And you didn't even fight her, Boyd said. You didn't argue. You didn't raise your voice. You just gave up. Their mother reached for Donovan's hand, gripping it tightly. If you're scared, she said softly, we can help. You don't have to do this alone. Donovan looked at her then, really looked at her. The worry etched into her face, the years she'd spent supporting them all. The woman who had once balanced checkbooks at midnight so her husband could sleep an extra hour before work. I'm not scared, he said. Boyd threw his hands up. Then what? Guilty? Tired? Broken? Donovan exhaled slowly. He stood and walked to the small hallway closet near the back door. Boyd watched him with narrowed eyes, ready to explode again. Their mother wiped at her cheeks, confused and frightened. From the closet, Donovan pulled out a thick manila folder. It was worn at the edges, overstuffed, secured with a black binder clip that barely held. He returned to the table and placed it down between them with a dull, solid thud. Boyd's eyes dropped to it immediately. "What's that?" Boyd demanded. Donovan didn't answer right away. He slid the folder across the table toward Boyd, stopping it just short of his reach. "I didn't give up," Donovan said evenly. I stepped back. Boyd stared at the folder like it might bite him. "You're not making sense." "That's okay," Donovan replied. "You don't need the whole picture." Their mother frowned. "Donnie, just enough," he said gently. Boyd hesitated, then reached out and flipped the folder open. Papers spilled slightly, dense with numbers, highlighted sections, handwritten notes in the margins. Bank statements, ledgers, dates circled in red. Boyd's anger faltered, replaced by confusion. "What am I looking at?" "Proof," Donovan said. Boyd flipped a few pages, his brow furrowing deeper with every one. "Proof of what?" Donovan leaned his elbows on the table, hands clasped. "That things aren't what they look like." Boyd looked up slowly. "You let her take it all on purpose?" Donovan met his brother's eyes. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He simply held the gaze. The realization crept over Boyd's face in stages, confusion giving way to shock, shock to something sharper. Understanding. "You're setting her up," Boyd said quietly. Donovan said nothing. Boyd leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. The fury drained out of him, replaced by a low, incredulous laugh. "Jesus Christ," he murmured. Their mother looked between them, still lost. "What does this mean?" "It means," Boyd said slowly, eyes still on the folder, that he didn't lose his mind. He looked at Donovan again, something like respect flickering in his expression. "It means," Boyd finished, "he's playing a longer game." Donovan closed the folder gently, pulling it back toward himself. "That's all you need to know," he said. And for the first time since walking through the door, Boyd didn't argue. Chapter 3, The Life We Built. The day Donnie inherited the plumbing company, the sky was the same dull gray it had been at his father's funeral. No drama, no thunder, just a quiet heaviness that settled into his bones and stayed there. The office was small, 2 rooms above a supply warehouse that smelled like copper and oil. His father's name was still painted on the frosted glass door. Hale and Son Plumbing. Donnie stood there for a long moment before unlocking it, keys heavy in his palm. He half expected his dad to be inside, boots kicked off, radio murmuring low, ready with a joke about Donnie finally showing up on time. Instead, there was only silence and responsibility. The first years were brutal. Donnie worked before sunrise and after dark, hands raw, shoulders aching, mind always racing. He answered phones, ran jobs, chased invoices, fixed trucks himself because there was no money for a mechanic. Some nights he slept in the office, head down on his desk, alarm set for 5 a.m. so he could make the first call. It wasn't heroic. It was necessary. That was when he met Nora. She came into his life the way spring does after a long winter, bright, unexpected, full of promise. They met at a friend's barbecue, of all places. Donnie showed up late, grease still under his fingernails, wearing a shirt with the company logo stitched crookedly over the pocket. Nora laughed when he apologized for the way he looked. "I like men who work," she said, handing him a beer. "It means they build things." She was sharp, confident, ambitious. She asked questions about the business, real ones, not polite small talk. She listened when he talked about his plans, his frustrations, his fear of failing his father's legacy. "You'll grow it," she said once, squeezing his hand. "I can see it. You don't quit." In the beginning, they were a team. Nora helped with paperwork at night, sitting across from him at the kitchen table while he sorted receipts. She organized invoices, cleaned up spreadsheets, suggested better ways to track expenses. When Donnie landed a big contract, she celebrated harder than he did. When a job fell through, she told him it was temporary, that momentum mattered more than setbacks. They married quietly, nothing extravagant, just family, a borrowed hall, and a promise that felt solid enough to last a lifetime. The kids came sooner than expected. Maisie first, tiny, loud, stubborn from the start. Donnie cried when he held her, surprised by how completely she rearranged his world in a single breath. Theo followed 2 years later, calmer, watchful, eyes always studying everything like he was trying to figure out how it all worked. Those years blurred together in the best way. Morning routines, late-night feedings, Donnie coming home exhausted, only to find Nora waiting with dinner and a tired smile. They talked about the future in whispers after the kids were asleep, bigger house, fewer hours someday, maybe even a vacation that didn't involve a phone buzzing every 5 minutes. The business grew. Donnie hired his first employee, then his second. He replaced old vans, updated equipment, rebranded the logo while keeping the name. Hale and Son stayed. That mattered to him. Nora stopped helping with the books eventually, not because she didn't care, but because there was simply too much else. The kids needed attention. Life was busy. Donnie took over again, grateful for how far they'd come. At first, the changes were subtle. Nora sighed more often, complained about Donnie missing dinners, missing school events, missing moments she thought mattered. Donnie listened, apologized, promised to do better. He meant it every time. "You're always tired," she said one night as he sank into the couch, boots still on. "I'm building something," he replied. "For us." "For you," she corrected lightly, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Money came more easily now, but satisfaction didn't follow the way Donnie expected. Nora wanted upgrades, new furniture, nicer clothes, a different car. None of it was outrageous, not on its own. Donnie agreed to most of it. He wanted her happy. He told himself this was normal. Growing pains. "You work too much," she said more often. "What's the point if you're never here?" Donnie looked at his hands one night, scarred, calloused, permanently stained from years of labor, and wondered how else he was supposed to keep everything standing. Still, there were good days. Family trips, laughter at the dinner table, moments that felt solid enough to anchor him when doubt crept in. Donnie held onto those moments, believing they were the truth and the rest was just noise. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something shifted. Nora stopped asking about the business, stopped celebrating wins. When Donnie talked about expansion or new contracts, she nodded distractedly, already scrolling through her phone. The partnership they'd built dulled into parallel lives moving in the same house. One evening, as Donnie balanced bills at the table, Nora walked past without looking. "You don't need to do that tonight," she said. "It needs to be done," he replied. She paused, then said quietly, "So does everything else." The words lingered after she left the room. Donnie stared down at the numbers, unease curling faintly in his chest. He told himself it was stress, fatigue, that marriages bent under pressure and straightened again if you gave them time. He believed it. He wanted to. But somewhere between the early mornings and the late nights, between the life they built and the life they imagined, hairline fractures began to form, small enough to ignore, quiet enough to deny, yet deep enough that, one day, they would split everything wide open. Chapter 4. Nothing was ever enough. At first, Donnie didn't notice when Nora stopped helping with the books. It happened quietly, the way habits fade when no one is watching. One night, she closed her laptop earlier than usual. Another night, she didn't open it at all. Soon, the stack of invoices and receipts on the corner of the kitchen table belonged to Donnie alone, waiting for him after the kids were asleep and the house had gone quiet. "I'm just tired," she said when he asked. "I do enough during the day." He believed her. The business was growing fast then. New contracts, longer hours, more employees to manage. Donnie told himself this was the trade-off. More work now, so there could be less later. He kept his head down and pushed forward the way he always had. But Nora's patience thinned as his workload increased. "You're never home," she said one evening as he slipped off his boots by the door, shoulders aching. "The kids asked where you were." "I was working," he replied gently. "Same as always." "That's the problem," she said, arms crossed. "It's always." The words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. They settled between them like a small accusation that refused to dissolve. She stopped working altogether not long after that. At first, it made sense. Maisie was starting school. Theo was still young. Daycare costs were rising, schedules were chaotic. Nora framed it as a practical decision. "I'll focus on the kids," she said. "On the house. You focus on the business." "That's fair." Donnie nodded. "If that's what you want." "It is," she said quickly. But once the decision was made, something in her posture changed. The way she spoke about money shifted, not as something earned together, but as something owed to her. The complaints started small. "This house feels cramped," she said one afternoon, walking through the living room like she was seeing it for the first time. "We should really think about upgrading." "We just refinanced," Donnie reminded her. "It's manageable now." "Manageable isn't the same as good," she replied. Then came the car. "This thing is embarrassing," she said, tapping the steering wheel. "Everyone at school pickup drives something newer." Donnie frowned. "It runs fine. That's not the point." The point, he realized, kept changing. She spent more time scrolling through her phone, showing him pictures of kitchens they didn't have, vacations they hadn't taken, lives curated by people who didn't work 12-hour days and come home smelling like pipe sealant and sweat. "We could afford this if you wanted to," she said once, eyes still on the screen. "I do want to," Donnie replied. "I just don't want to drown us to get there." Nora sighed, a sound heavy with disappointment. "You always think so small." That one stung. Emotionally, she pulled away without announcing it. Conversations shortened. Touches became rare, almost polite. When Donnie tried to talk, really talk, she waved it off. "I don't want to argue," she'd say. "I'm not arguing," he insisted. "I'm trying to understand." "Well, I'm tired of explaining," she replied, already turning away. The distance between them grew until it felt normal, like furniture that had always been there. Donnie adjusted without realizing it. Ate dinners alone when she went to bed early. Watched TV with the volume low so he wouldn't wake her. Told himself this was just a phase. Stress does this to people, he thought. Pressure, parenthood, life. Nora began spending money more freely, clothes, decor, things that arrived in boxes Donnie didn't remember ordering. When he mentioned it, she bristled. "I don't ask you how to run your business," she snapped. "Don't question how I run this house." He backed down. He usually did. The arguments, when they happened, followed the same script. "You don't listen," she said. "I do," he replied. "You just don't care enough to change." "I'm doing everything I can." "For you," she insisted. "Not for us." Donnie started staying later at work. Not because he wanted to avoid her, but because it was easier to be somewhere his effort had clear results. Pipes either leaked or they didn't. Jobs were either finished or unfinished. At home, everything felt vague and unwinnable. Nora noticed. "So now you're choosing work over us," she said one night as he loosened his tie, exhaustion settling deep in his spine. "I'm choosing stability," he answered. "For all of us." She laughed softly, without humor. "You keep telling yourself that." The intimacy they once had, easy laughter, shared plans, whispered jokes after the kids were asleep, faded into memory. Nora slept facing away from him. Her phone was always nearby, screen lighting up more often than before. Donnie noticed, but he didn't question it. Not yet. He told himself marriages weren't movies. They weren't constant passion and understanding. They were endurance, commitment, showing up even when it wasn't easy. He told himself Nora was unhappy, not ungrateful, frustrated, not entitled, that if he just pushed a little harder, earned a little more, came home a little earlier, things would level out. He believed that love was something you proved through sacrifice. So he sacrificed. More hours, more energy, more silence. And Nora, watching from the other side of the growing distance, took it all in stride, never quite satisfied, never quite content, always looking past what they had toward something better, brighter, and just out of reach. Donnie didn't see it then, but the truth was already forming between them. No matter how much he gave, it was never going to be enough. Chapter 5. The Man Who Knew the Numbers. Vance Odom arrived on a Tuesday morning with a leather briefcase and a handshake that lingered half a second longer than necessary. He wore a tailored suit that looked out of place in the cramped office above the supply warehouse, but he didn't seem to notice. He smiled easily, spoke calmly, and made Donnie feel, almost immediately, like things were finally under control. "Growth like yours needs structure," Vance said, setting his briefcase on the desk and clicking it open. Not because you're doing anything wrong, because you're doing something right. Donnie liked that. He'd been running the company on instinct and grit for years, balancing ledgers late at night, trusting his gut more than spreadsheets. Vance spoke a different language, cash flow, depreciation, projections, but he translated it in a way that didn't feel condescending. You focus on pipes and people, Vance said. I'll focus on the numbers. It sounded like relief. Within weeks, Vance had reorganized accounts, streamlined payroll, and flagged inefficiencies Donnie hadn't even known were there. Bills went out on time. Vendors stopped calling. The constant low-level anxiety Donnie carried about missing something, about failing the business his father built, eased for the first time in years. See, Nora said one evening as Donnie reviewed the new reports at the kitchen table. I told you he needed help. She leaned over his shoulder, perfume faint but unfamiliar, scanning the pages with interest. He's good, she added. Confident. Donnie nodded. He knows his stuff. Vance started coming by the office regularly, sometimes staying late. He brought donuts once, joked with the crew, learned names. He fit in easily, like someone who'd always been there. When he asked for deeper access, full financials, historical records, check signing authority, it felt reasonable. You can't see the whole picture through a keyhole, Vance explained. I need the full landscape. Donnie signed the paperwork without hesitation. At home, Nora asked more questions than before. How much are we actually making now? She asked one night, scrolling through her phone while Donnie washed dishes. More than last year, he said. Vance says we're positioned well. She looked up. Numbers? He shrugged. Enough. That's vague, she replied, frowning. I like specifics. Soon, she started attending meetings, at first casually, stopping by the office to drop something off, then lingering longer than necessary. Vance greeted her warmly every time, standing when she entered, pulling out a chair. You must be the real boss, he said once with a grin. Nora laughed, pleased. Someone has to keep him in line. Donnie smiled too, though something about the exchange felt off. He brushed the thought aside. Nora had always been personable. Vance was just being polite. Still, he noticed the way she dressed on days she visited the office. A little sharper, a little more effort. He noticed how she repeated Vance's phrases at home, how she quoted his opinions as if they carried extra weight. Vance thinks we should diversify, she said one evening. Vance thinks a lot, Donnie replied lightly. She didn't laugh. Donnie's mother noticed too. They were sitting at her kitchen table one afternoon, the smell of soup filling the room. She stirred slowly, eyes distant, then glanced up at him. That accountant, she said, he's around a lot. Donnie nodded. He's helping. She hesitated. And Nora seems close to him. Donnie felt a flicker of irritation. Mom, I'm just saying, she interrupted gently. I've lived long enough to recognize certain patterns. There's nothing to recognize, Donnie said, sharper than he intended. She's interested because it's our money. His mother studied him for a moment, then looked back at the soup. Sometimes interest turns into something else. Donnie pushed back his chair slightly. You're imagining things. Maybe, she conceded, but keep your eyes open. I trust my wife, he said firmly. At home, Nora laughed more when Vance was mentioned. She defended him quickly if Donnie questioned a suggestion. He's the expert, she said once. You hired him for a reason. Donnie nodded. He reminded himself that progress often felt uncomfortable, that letting go of control was part growth. Vance delivered results. That was what mattered. One night, as Donnie worked late in the office, Vance poked his head in. You're burning the candle at both ends, he said. You should head home. Donnie glanced at the clock, surprised by the hour. Didn't realize it was that late. Vance smiled. That's what I'm here for. I got it covered. Donnie locked up and drove home, exhaustion heavy behind his eyes. When he walked in, Nora was on the couch, phone in hand, smiling at something on the screen. Everything okay? He asked. She looked up quickly. Yeah, just chatting. With who? She shrugged. Friends. Donnie kissed her forehead and went to shower, the question dissolving under hot water and fatigue. Trust was easier than doubt. Weeks passed, then months. The business thrived. The numbers looked better than ever. Donnie slept easier knowing someone else was watching the details. And when his mother mentioned Vance again, her voice cautious, Donnie waved it off. "You worry too much," he said. "We're finally stable." She didn't argue. She just watched him with a sadness he didn't understand. If Donnie had looked closer at the timing of deposits, at the subtle shifts in Nora's attention, at the way Vance always seemed one step ahead, he might have noticed the first real warning signs. But he didn't, because at that moment, the man who knew the numbers was the man Donnie trusted most, and the warning, when it came, sounded too much like doubt to be worth listening to. Chapter 6. The Door I Shouldn't Have Opened. Donnie came home early because the job finished faster than expected. It was nothing dramatic, no intuition, no warning bell. A pipe replacement wrapped up ahead of schedule. The crew packed up, and for once there was no follow-up call waiting. Donnie checked his watch, surprised by the empty space in the afternoon. He thought of Maisie's spelling test she'd been nervous about. Theo's habit of running to the door when he heard the truck. He imagined Nora's face when he walked in early, the small lift of surprise. The house sat quiet when he pulled into the driveway. That struck him first. Nora's car was there, angled slightly wrong, as if she'd rushed the parking. The curtains in the bedroom were drawn, even though the sun still cut bright across the lawn. Donnie shut off the engine and sat for a moment, keys warm in his hand, listening to the tick of cooling metal. He told himself nothing. Inside, the air felt different. Heavy. The faint scent of perfume lingered, stronger than usual, sharper, not the soft familiarity he'd grown used to. Donnie set his keys on the counter. His boots sounded too loud on the hardwood. "Nora," he called. No answer. He moved down the hallway, slow, without meaning to be. A laugh drifted from the bedroom, quiet, intimate, unmistakably not meant for him. His steps stopped. His chest tightened, not with panic, but with something like sudden clarity. Donnie reached the bedroom door and opened it. The room froze. Nora was tangled in the sheets, hair loose, skin bare where it shouldn't have been. Vance Odom sat up beside her, the cover half pulled to his waist, his face registering shock a beat too late. The world narrowed to details Donnie would never forget. The way the lamp cast a harsh line across Vance's cheek, the indentation of bodies on the mattress, Nora's hand instinctively clutching the sheet as if it could erase what was already seen. No one screamed. No one moved. Donnie felt a strange calm wash over him, like his body had decided to step aside and let something colder take control. His pulse slowed. His thoughts aligned with brutal efficiency. "Oh," Nora said finally. "That was it. Just oh." Vance cleared his throat, already scrambling for words. "Donovan, this isn't—" "Stop," Donnie said quietly. His voice surprised them. It didn't shake. It didn't rise. It landed flat and final. Nora sat up, wrapping the sheet around herself. Her eyes flicked from Donnie to the door, as if calculating distance. "How long?" Donnie asked. Nora hesitated. Vance opened his mouth again. "Look, let's all take a breath." Donnie's eyes cut to him. "I wasn't talking to you." Nora swallowed. It's been a while." "A while," Donnie repeated. She lifted her chin, defensiveness sliding into place. "Over a year." The number settled between them like a weight dropped from a height. Donnie nodded once, as if confirming a figure on a report. "And the kids?" he asked. Nora flinched. "They weren't here." That wasn't the question. Her eyes fell away. Silence answered for her. Vance shifted uncomfortably. "Donnie, I swear, this had nothing to do with the business." Donnie looked around the room, their room. Photos on the dresser. A framed picture of the kids at the beach. His father's old watch on a nightstand, the one Nora insisted he keep there. "Funny," Donnie said softly. "That's where it happened." Nora's voice sharpened. "Don't do that. Don't act like this came out of nowhere." He looked at her then. Really looked. She wasn't crying. She wasn't ashamed. She looked irritated, like he'd interrupted something she was entitled to. "You were never home," she said. "You chose work over us. Over me. What did you think would happen?" Donnie let the words pass through him without resistance. He had heard versions of them before. He had rehearsed responses in quieter moments. None of them mattered now. Vance swung his legs off the bed, reaching for his pants. "We made a mistake," he said quickly. "People get close under pressure. It doesn't have to blow up everything." Donnie laughed once. It surprised all three of them. "A mistake," he said. "You miscalculate a number. You forget a date. You don't do this for a year by accident." Vance's mouth tightened. "You don't understand the dynamic." Donnie stepped forward. "Just one step." Vance froze. "Get dressed," Donnie said, "and get out." Nora shot him a look. "You don't get to order people around." "I'm not ordering," Donnie replied. "I'm stating what happens next." Vance glanced at Nora, searching for support. She said nothing. He dressed quickly, movements clumsy, eyes never quite meeting Donnie's. When he stood, Donnie gestured toward the door. "Keys," Donnie said. Vance hesitated. "They're in my jacket." "Then go get them," Donnie replied, "and leave them on the counter." Nora swung her legs off the bed. "You're really doing this?" she demanded. "After everything I've given up?" Donnie paused at the doorway. "Given up." She opened her mouth, then closed it again, anger flashing where justification failed. Vance passed Donnie in the hall, shoulders hunched, footsteps hurried. Donnie followed at a distance, every movement precise, detached. At the front door, Vance placed the keys down, his hand shaking slightly. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he muttered. Donnie opened the door. "Yes," he said. "You did." Vance stepped outside. Donnie closed the door behind him and locked it. The sound echoed through the house, final, irrevocable. He stood there for a moment, hand still on the knob, feeling nothing at all. Then he turned and walked back down the hallway, past the bedroom, past the life that had just ended, already understanding something essential. The man who had loved without suspicion was gone, and the man who remained would never open another door without knowing exactly what stood on the other side. Chapter 7. She Wanted War. The papers arrived 3 days later. Not by conversation, not by explanation, not even by courtesy. A courier knocked on the door just after 8 in the morning, clipboard in hand, eyes already sliding away before Donnie opened it fully. The man didn't meet his gaze as he confirmed the name and extended the envelope. "Divorce petition," he said, like he was announcing a delivery window. Donnie signed without comment and closed the door. The house was quiet again, too quiet. The kids were at school. Nora had taken a suitcase the night she'd screamed herself hoarse and left, telling him he'd regret humiliating her, that this wasn't over. She hadn't been wrong. Donnie set the envelope on the kitchen counter and stared at it for a long moment before opening it. The paper inside was crisp, official, and cold. Legal language stacked neatly into paragraphs designed to do one thing: strip emotion out of devastation and turn it into leverage. He read slowly. Irreconcilable differences. Marital assets. Primary residence. Business ownership. By the time he reached the demands, his jaw tightened, not in shock but recognition. She wanted everything. The house. The cars. Full custody leverage. And there it was, bold and unmistakable. Exclusive ownership of Hale and Son Plumbing, listed as a marital asset acquired and grown during the marriage. Donnie exhaled through his nose. So that was how she wanted to play it. Hugh Whitaker didn't bother hiding his anger when Donnie sat across from him later that afternoon. The office felt smaller than before, the walls closing in as Hugh flipped through the petition with sharp, irritated movements. "This is hostile," Hugh said. "Not just aggressive, hostile." Donnie watched him calmly. "She's claiming entitlement to the business," Hugh continued. "Not a share. The entire thing. She's framing your father's company as something she built." Donnie nodded once. "I saw." Hugh looked up sharply. And nothing," Donnie replied. Hugh scoffed, incredulous. "Donovan, this isn't posturing. This is a declaration of war. Her attorney is using language meant to intimidate you into concessions." "Is it working?" Donnie asked. Hugh paused. "No, but it could if you let it." He slid the papers across the desk. "We fight this. Immediately. I file a response, demand discovery, put pressure back on her side. You have leverage here, more than she thinks." Donnie leaned back in his chair, fingers interlaced, eyes scanning the ceiling instead of the paperwork. Somewhere beneath the tension, a familiar calm had settled in, one he didn't fully trust yet, but recognized. "She's moving fast," Hugh continued. "That tells me something. Either she's confident, or she's desperate." Donnie's eyes flicked back down. "Confident," he said. Hugh raised an eyebrow. You sound sure. She always was, Donnie replied quietly. Hugh leaned forward, voice firm. Listen to me. I've represented men who froze when their spouses came at them like this. They lost things they never should have. I'm not letting that happen to you. Donnie met his gaze. I know. Then let me do my job. Donnie picked up the petition again, flipping to the section on assets. He read it carefully, lips barely moving. The language was precise, calculated, almost rehearsed. She didn't write this, Donnie said. Hugh shook his head. Her lawyer did. No, Donnie said softly. She told him what to write. Hugh studied him. What makes you say that? Donnie tapped a paragraph with his finger. This part, about operational control. That's her wording. She's been using phrases like that lately. Hugh's jaw tightened. Then she's more involved than I thought. The room fell quiet except for the muted hum of traffic outside. We need to respond, Hugh said again, slower now. Silence reads as weakness. Donnie nodded. I agree. Hugh straightened. Good. But not yet. Hugh blinked. What? I need time, Donnie said. A little. Hugh frowned. Time for what? To check something. Hugh leaned back, frustration creeping in. Donovan, with respect, this isn't the moment for hesitation. Every day we wait, she tightens the narrative. We counter now, or she defines the battlefield. Donnie folded the papers neatly and set them down. I understand the risk. Then why stall? Donnie's gaze hardened, not angry, not defiant, just focused. Because if I respond before I'm certain, I might protect the wrong things. Hugh studied him, suspicion replacing irritation. You know something. Donnie didn't answer that. Instead, he stood, adjusting his jacket, movements unhurried. Give me a little time, he repeated. Not weeks. Just enough. Hugh hesitated. If this is about emotion, it's not, Donnie said flatly. Hugh sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. You're asking me to sit on a live grenade. I'm asking you to trust me, Donnie replied. Silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, Hugh nodded once. All right, but understand this. When we move hard. Donnie picked up the envelope. That's fine. He turned toward the door, already mentally stepping out of the marriage and into something colder, more deliberate. As he reached for the handle, Hugh spoke again. Donovan. Donnie paused. She wants war, Hugh said. Donnie looked back, eyes steady. I know, he said. That's why I need to check something first. Chapter 8. The numbers didn't lie. The house was asleep when Donnie began. Maisie's nightlight cast a soft glow under her bedroom door. Theo's door was shut, a sock wedged beneath it the way he liked, pretending it kept monsters out. Donnie paused in the hallway longer than necessary, listening to the rhythm of their breathing, anchoring himself to something real before walking into the quiet that waited for him. The dining table became his office. He spread everything out with care, bank statements, payroll reports, vendor invoices, old tax filings. 3 years' worth. He didn't rush. Rushing made mistakes, and mistakes were luxuries he couldn't afford anymore. He poured stale coffee into a mug and sat down, sleeves rolled up, the same way he did before a long job. Numbers never lied. People did. At first, it was just a feeling, a tug at the back of his mind. Totals that didn't settle right, like a pipe that rattled even when the pressure looked fine. He recalculated a monthly expense, then did it again slower. The result stayed the same. Too high. He flipped to the next statement. Same vendor. Same amount range. Different invoice number. Donnie leaned closer, brow furrowing. Come on, he murmured to himself. He pulled out his old ledger, the one he kept before Vance had streamlined everything. The handwriting was his. Familiar. Honest. The discrepancy widened when he compared them. It wasn't sloppy accounting. It was deliberate. Hour by hour, the house grew quieter. The refrigerator clicked on and off. Somewhere outside, a car passed. Donnie traced transactions backward, following the trail the way he'd follow a leak behind drywall. Patiently, methodically, knowing the damage was always worse than it first appeared. He found a first fake invoice just after midnight. A company name he didn't recognize. Generic. Too clean. No physical address, just a P.O. box. The service description was vague. Consulting services. The amount was just under the threshold that usually triggered questions. Donnie pulled another invoice from the same company. Then another. His jaw tightened. He opened his laptop and searched the company name. Nothing. No website. No registration. He tried the P.O. box, dead end. He scribbled the name on a notepad and circled it hard enough to tear the paper. "This is bullshit," he whispered. He kept going. The shell companies revealed themselves slowly, like rot spreading under fresh paint. Different names. Different invoices. Same patterns. Payments routed through accounts that looked legitimate until you followed them far enough. Donnie followed everything. At 2 in the morning, he found the checks. His checks. The signature at the bottom wasn't Vance's. It was Nora's. He stared at it for a long time. The curve of the N. The slight upward hook at the end. He'd seen it 1,000 times on school forms, birthday cards, grocery lists stuck to the fridge. She hadn't even tried to hide it. Donnie felt something give way inside him, not with a snap, but with a quiet, devastating certainty. He didn't slam the table, didn't swear. He simply sat back and let the truth settle. This wasn't an affair. This was a partnership. He stacked the checks neatly, aligning the edges, grounding himself in the small, controllable action. His hands didn't shake. That scared him more than if they had. By 3 a.m., he had a running total. He added it once, then again, then a third time, just to be sure. $392,814.67. Nearly $400,000. Gone. Not mismanaged. Not lost to overhead. Taken. Donnie rubbed his face with both hands, dragging them down slowly. Images replayed in his mind. Nora scrolling through her phone. Nora dismissing his concerns. Nora insisting he trusted the wrong people while standing beside the very man bleeding him dry. The affair suddenly made sense in a way that turned his stomach. Access. Opportunity. Silence. He flipped to another folder, heart pounding just enough now to remind him he was still human. The pattern held. Deposits timed to payroll cycles. Withdrawals masked as expenses. Clean enough that a surface glance wouldn't catch it. But Donnie wasn't glancing anymore. At 4 a.m., he stood and walked to the sink, splashing water on his face. His reflection stared back at him, eyes rimmed red, expression unreadable. "You were right," he said quietly, to his mother, to his instincts, to the part of himself he'd ignored. When he returned to the table, the evidence looked different. He wasn't looking at chaos anymore. He was looking at a system, a crime with structure. He gathered everything into a thick folder, adding tabs, notes, timestamps. He didn't confront the anger rising in his chest. He acknowledged it, then set it aside. Anger rushed. Strategy waited. By dawn, the sky lightened at the edges. Birds started up like nothing in the world had changed. Donnie closed the folder and sat there, listening to the house wake slowly around him. The betrayal had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. This wasn't about love anymore. It was about truth. And truth, once uncovered, didn't ask permission to destroy everything built on a lie. Chapter 9. If she wants it, let her have it. The morning sunlight cut through the blinds of the office, slanting across the table like a spotlight on what was to come. Donnie sat there, folder open, coffee cooling beside him, and waited for Boyd. He didn't pace. He didn't fidget. Calm, measured, patient, the kind of calm that made people forget there was a storm beneath it. Boyd arrived 10 minutes later, his usual energy barely contained in his broad shoulders and tight jaw. He dropped into the chair across from Donnie and glared at the folder. "Donnie," Boyd said, voice low and tense, "I've been pacing my apartment all night. Tell me this isn't real." Donnie leaned back, hands clasped on the table. "It's real." Boyd's eyes scanned the folder, catching on highlighted totals, dates, and the neat tabs Donnie had added. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "This is massive. What the hell were you thinking, letting her even touch this?" Donnie shrugged lightly. "I haven't let her touch it yet." Boyd blinked, confusion flashing across his face. "Then why did you?" "Because she thinks she already has." Donnie's voice was calm, steady. "She wants it, she'll take it. That's the point." Boyd froze mid-sentence, realizing the implication. "Wait, you're not talking about the money. You're talking about the business. You're talking about letting her take the company. Donnie nodded, eyes unwavering. Everything. The house, the cars, the business, all of it. She'll think it's hers, but it won't be without cost. Boyd leaned back, arms crossed, shock and awe battling for dominance. Donnie, are you insane? Not insane, Donnie said evenly. Calculated. Patient. Precise. They worked in silence for a moment, the hum of the office filling the gap. Finally, Boyd asked, so what's the plan? You've done the homework. What's next? Donnie pushed the folder toward him. We bring in a forensic accountant. Someone external. Someone who will verify everything. Confirm what we already know. Boyd frowned. Federal level? Yes, Donnie replied. Wire fraud. Tax evasion. Embezzlement. She's in deep, and she doesn't even realize it yet. Boyd ran a hand over the papers, flipping through them carefully. She doesn't have a clue? Exactly. Donnie's tone was quiet, but sharp. And we won't tell her. Boyd raised an eyebrow. You're not even going to warn her? Donnie leaned back, fingers tapping the table lightly. If I warn her, she destroys evidence. If I confront her, she hides it better. The trap fails if she knows it's coming. Boyd exhaled a long, low sound. So we're letting her take the bait. Letting her think she's winning. Exactly. Donnie's eyes locked on his brother. We give her everything she wants on paper. Ownership, control, the illusion of victory. But she'll inherit the liability too. Boyd tilted his head, comprehension dawning slowly. Wait, you mean she gets the company, but she also gets responsibility for everything she's done? Legal responsibility. Yes. Donnie's voice was almost clinical. Everything she signed, approved, authorized, she owns it once she takes the business. Federal-level crimes don't transfer back to me. They transfer to her. Boyd leaned back, running a hand through his hair again. A mix of fear and respect in his expression. That's brilliant. Not brilliant, Donnie corrected gently. Necessary. The plan was simple in concept, but the execution demanded precision. Donnie explained how they'd structure the forensic audit to confirm the numbers, document everything meticulously, and keep it airtight. Boyd listened intently, occasionally interjecting with questions about timelines, legal loopholes, and potential fallout. What about her lawyer? Boyd asked. She'll see this coming. Donnie shook his head. No, the audit will be presented as due diligence. Every paper trail, every tab, every flag transaction, perfectly legal, perfectly normal. To them, it's routine. To us, it's proof of everything she's done. Boyd ran a finger along a highlighted line of checks. So if she signs, if she takes control, she's signing her own indictment. Donnie nodded once. Ownership equals liability. She wants it. Let her have it. Boyd exhaled sharply, pacing a little. And if she fights, then we wait, Donnie said. She's already trapped. Fighting only speeds up the exposure. Boyd paused, gripping the edge of the table. I can't believe this. All this time she's been collaborating. Donnie finished. Affair, embezzlement, manipulation. The numbers don't lie. People do. And she did both. Boyd's eyes softened slightly, a mix of sadness and admiration. You kept your cool all this time? I had to, Donnie replied. Emotion clouds judgment. Patience and strategy win wars, not rage. They went over every document in the folder again, marking dates, cross-referencing signatures, and highlighting shell companies. The forensic accountant would confirm everything, making the paper trail bulletproof. Every invoice, every wire transfer, every check bore Nora's fingerprints, literally and figuratively. Boyd leaned back, hands on his knees, letting the weight of the situation settle in. You've thought of everything, he said. She won't see this coming. Donnie leaned forward, tapping the folder with a fingertip. Exactly. She'll take it all, what she's always wanted. And in doing so, she seals her own fate. Boyd nodded slowly, his energy now focused, aligned with his brother's. We hire the accountant, confirm the numbers, and then, Donnie said, eyes cold, we wait. She moves first. She signs first. She owns it. And only then does the law step in. Boyd exhaled one last time, muttering, I can't believe this is real. It's real, Donnie said. And it's necessary. Everything we've endured, all the lies, all the betrayals, it leads here. The plan only works if we stay silent, stay patient, and stay focused. Boyd looked at him. Comprehension finally settled in. So, the more she pushes, the faster she walks into the trap? Yes, Donnie said simply. Her desire for control is her weakness. We leverage it. Nothing more, nothing less. Boyd nodded, eyes scanning the folder again, slowly understanding the brilliance and the danger of it. And you're not warning her. Not a word. Donnie's gaze hardened. If I warn her, she'll destroy everything. And then it's just a divorce. Nothing learned, nothing gained. No justice. The trap only works if she's blind. Boyd's jaw relaxed as he leaned back in his chair. I see it now. Ownership equals liability. Exactly, Donnie replied. She wants it. Let her have it. It was simple, elegant, and merciless. The trap was finalized. Chapter 10. The Man Who Gave Up. The office smelled faintly of ink and paper. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, cutting diagonal lines across the polished wood of Hugh Whitaker's conference table. Donnie sat at the end, shoulders slightly slumped, expression neutral, though his mind was already a dozen steps ahead of anyone in the room. On the table lay the draft divorce agreement, thick and imposing, crisp with legal authority. Hugh dropped into the chair across from him, frowning. Donnie, I don't understand, he said, tapping the stack of papers with frustration. You're agreeing to everything. Every asset, every claim. The house, the cars, the business itself. This is catastrophic. Donnie didn't look up immediately. He ran a finger along the edge of the contract, tracing the line where Nora's interests were spelled out in precise legal language. Hugh, he said slowly, I'm not agreeing to anything just yet. I'm signing the draft. It's not final. Hugh threw his hands in the air. Draft or not, she'll see this as weakness. She'll walk in with a smile, knowing she's won. You're giving her ammunition. Donnie finally met his lawyer's eyes, calm and measured. Let her think she's won, he said. The words were quiet but deliberate. It doesn't change the reality behind the paper. Hugh rubbed his temples. Reality? Donnie, she's asking for everything. She thinks she's entitled to everything. You're letting her have it. On record, you could lose it all. Everything your father built. Donnie leaned back, fingers laced, eyes distant. If losing it in appearance protects what matters most, then yes. Everything. She'll take the illusion. I'll protect the substance. Hugh blinked, confusion and exasperation warring on his face. I don't follow. How does signing everything, even on paper, protect anything? Donnie smiled faintly, the kind of smile that wasn't warmth but a quiet assurance. Lose the battle, Hugh. Win the war. Hugh stared at him. That's a philosophy, not a plan. It's both, Donnie said calmly. Trust me. The door opened quietly, and Boyd stepped in, looking apprehensive. He held a takeout bag, unclaimed breakfast forgotten in the rush of family worry. Morning, he said, eyes darting to the papers. I don't like this. Neither do I, Hugh said sharply. But Donnie's determined. He believes that pretending to lose is part of the strategy, Donnie finished. He gestured at Boyd. Sit. Boyd did, though reluctantly, eyeing the contract as if it were a live wire. You're really going to let her think she's won? He asked. His voice trembled slightly, half disbelief, half anger. Yes, Donnie said, but that's not the point. She won't see the consequences coming. And the kids. He paused, glancing toward the window where the morning sun reflected off the city streets. The kids are the only thing that matters right now. Their emotional safety. Hugh leaned back, arms crossed. You mean you're sacrificing the business, the house, your life's work for appearances? This is insane. It's not insane, Donnie said quietly. It's tactical. Emotional damage to them would be permanent. Nora thinks she's winning, so the household remains stable for the kids. That's victory in the present. Boyd frowned. But she's smiling while you're giving her everything. Don't you care what people think? Donnie shrugged. Let them think what they want. The people who matter, my children, my brother, my mother, they understand. He picked up the first page of the agreement, sliding it under his pen. His hand hovered above the paper, deliberate, almost ritualistic. Hugh leaned forward. Are you really doing this? Donnie nodded, eyes calm. Yes. And when I sign, it looks like surrender. When in reality, he tapped the folder resting against the stack of papers, the one Boyd had seen days ago, thick with evidence, dates, amounts, and shell companies. It's preparation. Hugh blinked, a flicker of hope mixed with unease crossing his face. You've really thought of everything, haven't you? Donnie exhaled, calm, almost serene. I've thought it through 1,000 times. Every scenario, every reaction, every misstep she could take. We're prepared. She won't see it coming. Boyd shook his head slowly. I can't believe you're calm through all this. I'd be tearing these papers apart. Donnie tilted his head slightly, his eyes softening only for a moment. Patience beats rage. Precision beats chaos. It's hard to feel powerless when you're choosing how to appear powerless. Hugh muttered under his breath, leaning back with a resigned sigh. You're either a genius or a fool. I just hope it's genius. The pen met the paper. First page signed. Second page signed. Third, each stroke deliberate, quiet, almost ceremonial. Friends and family, if they were watching, would have seen a man crumbling under betrayal. They would have assumed he'd lost, that he was broken, that the world he built was slipping through his fingers. But Donnie felt nothing except the careful, steady hum of control. Boyd glanced at him again, concern etched deep on his face. And the kids, you're sure they'll be okay through all this? They'll be fine, Donnie said, because I protect what can't be taken from them. Love, guidance, stability. Not the house, not the business. Those are just numbers. Emotion, that's everything. Hugh shook his head, leaning forward. You're placing everything on faith. This could backfire. It could destroy her. It could destroy you. Donnie looked at him levelly. I know the risk. But timing, patience, and strategy, they're on our side. Everything else is noise. A silence fell in the office, heavy but not uncomfortable. Donnie closed the final page and stacked the documents neatly. It looked like defeat. It smelled like surrender. It felt like power. Boyd stood, muttering to himself, I don't know if I'll ever understand you, Donnie. You will, Donnie said softly. When it's over, when the plan unfolds, and she realizes her victory was her own undoing. Hugh shook his head again, rubbing his temples, muttering, I hope you're right. Donnie stood, stretching slightly, but his movements were measured. He glanced at Boyd and Hugh, then toward the city outside the window. Win the war, he repeated quietly, almost to himself. Lose the battle, win the war. Boyd exhaled, eyes fixed on the papers. You really mean that, huh? Donnie nodded. Completely. The rest doesn't matter right now. The kids matter. Nothing else. Hugh muttered again, almost as an afterthought. I hope this works, Donnie. I really do. Donnie gave a small, serene nod. He picked up the signed drafts, stacking them neatly, ready to submit when the time came. Outside, the morning sun rose higher, illuminating a city oblivious to the quiet storm brewing inside a modest office on the edge of town. Donnie's expression was calm, unreadable. On the surface, he had surrendered. To anyone watching, he had given up. Inside, he was already 5 steps ahead. Because sometimes the strongest move was to appear weak. Sometimes losing the battle was the only way to win the war. Chapter 11, The Final Hearing. The courtroom smelled of polished wood, paper, and a faint trace of old coffee. Sunlight slanted through the tall windows, cutting the room into geometric shapes that seemed almost ceremonial. Donnie sat at the plaintiff's table, hands folded neatly on the polished surface, his posture calm, almost indifferent. Around him, the quiet buzz of whispered conversations drifted like static, lawyers, court clerks, and the occasional murmured question from curious observers. Nora arrived precisely on time, gliding through the double doors in a tailored suit that clung to her like armor. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, steady and deliberate. Every movement spoke of confidence, victory, and the unspoken thrill of anticipation. She carried a folder of her own, colored tabs marking sections of the settlement she had memorized, underlined for emphasis. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless, her smile sharp and triumphant. She scanned the room, her eyes locking briefly on Donnie. He met her gaze once, expression neutral, no flare of anger, no hint of hurt. Just calm, steady, and unreadable. She misinterpreted it, of course, as despair, a sign of weakness. Her smile widened, imperceptibly, and she sauntered past him with a confidence that filled the courtroom. The judge, an imposing man with silvered hair and spectacles perched low on his nose, cleared his throat. "We are here to finalize the divorce settlement between Nora Hale and Donovan Hale." His voice was measured, deliberate, as if the gravity of the moment demanded a slow pace. "All parties will hear the terms of the agreement as submitted." Nora leaned slightly forward, eyes bright with anticipation. Donnie's hand rested on the tabletop, motionless, as he watched the proceedings. "The settlement includes the marital residence at 412 Willow Creek Lane," the judge continued, reading each item meticulously. "All vehicles titled jointly or under Mr. Hale's name shall be transferred to Mrs. Hale. The entirety of Hale and Son Plumbing shall be transferred, including all operational control, assets, and liabilities to Mrs. Hale. Any additional financial assets, investments, or accounts acquired during the marriage shall be placed under Mrs. Hale's full ownership." A soft gasp traveled through the courtroom, but Nora's lips curled into a satisfied smile. She leaned slightly toward her attorney, whispering, "I told you. Everything." Hugh Whitaker, Donnie's lawyer, whispered sharply beside him, "This is catastrophic. Are you sure about this?" Donnie didn't flinch. "I'm sure," he murmured. "It's working exactly as planned." Nora's smile grew as she reached for her pen to initial each page. The judge paused as Donnie picked up his pen as well. There was a collective sense of finality, the kind of tension that could be felt in the shallow breaths of everyone present. He signed each page with deliberate calm, folding the pen into its case with care. Every stroke looked like surrender, every signature an admission of defeat. To anyone watching, he had given up everything. Nora leaned back, eyes gleaming. She whispered to her lawyer, confident, "He's finished. He's broken. This is over." The judge nodded, continuing, "With all documents signed and verified, this court recognizes the settlement as final and binding." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Cameras snapped, pens scribbled, and yet Donnie remained still, calm, collected, his hands resting lightly on the table. Nora glanced at him once more, victorious. She could barely contain the satisfaction of being proven right. Every detail she had demanded, every asset she believed she was entitled to, she now held on paper. The business, the house, every car, all the money she had ever hinted she wanted. She was untouchable. And then the door at the back of the courtroom opened quietly. Federal agents entered, in dark suits, badges glinting under the overhead lights. Their movements were purposeful but discreet, controlled. No one spoke as they approached the front, their presence a quiet thunderbolt in the room. One of the agents handed a thick stack of documents to Nora's lawyer, a folder identical in size and weight to the one Nora herself carried moments before. The lawyer flipped through it briefly, eyes widening, then glanced at his client. Nora leaned closer, curiosity and caution warring in her expression. Her lawyer bent slightly, lowering his voice to a near whisper, just enough for her to hear. "Vance Odom was just arrested," he said. Nora's smile faltered. A flicker of panic passed through her eyes, rapid and uncontrolled. She blinked, disbelieving, as if the words themselves were impossible. The courtroom seemed to freeze around her. The air thickened. Donnie's expression remained untouched, serene even, as if he had been expecting this moment all along. The calm behind his eyes was the calm of someone who had played a long game, measured every step, and waited for the precise instant of revelation. Her lawyer's hand trembled slightly as he passed the folder to her, the weight of its contents suddenly heavier than any legal document could ever appear. Nora's lips parted, a whisper escaping her, though no sound could mask the growing dread. Her world, once built on entitlement and calculated manipulation, began to crumble quietly, without the theatrics she might have expected or deserved. Donnie shifted slightly in his chair, still watching, still unreactive to the chaos unfolding in the woman he had once trusted. In his mind, every calculation had played out perfectly. Every false surrender, every measured smile, every signature, it had led to this exact moment. The federal agents remained still at the back, their presence an unspoken promise that the legal consequences she had never anticipated were now immediate. The courtroom, previously filled with murmurs of mundane judgment, was now a stage for a different kind of justice, one delivered with quiet, precise inevitability. And there she sat, Nora, victorious minutes ago, now confronted with the first hints of a reality she could neither charm nor manipulate. Donnie's calm didn't break. His pen was folded neatly beside the signed agreements. His focus, unshaken, rested solely on the slow, deliberate exposure of the truth he had uncovered long ago. In that moment, the room seemed to contract. All eyes turned, some in shock, some in confusion, and some, like Donnie's, in complete understanding. The man who appeared to have given up had not surrendered at all. He had orchestrated the final act, and every player on the stage had moved exactly as he anticipated. Nora's smile disappeared entirely. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Her hands fumbled with the folder. Her lawyer whispered again, though the words were lost to the collective intake of breath in the courtroom. The clock ticked. The sun slanted further across the floor. And for the first time it was clear. The victory Nora thought she had achieved was entirely, irreversibly, hers to lose. The whispered words lingered in her ears like a hammer striking cold steel. Vance Odom was just arrested. Chapter 12, she took everything. The courtroom seemed to shrink around her. Nora's carefully constructed armor, the tailored suit, the perfectly styled hair, the confident smile, had vanished under the weight of what she now faced. Her fingers gripped the edges of the folder so tightly her knuckles turned white. "What is this?" she screamed, voice bouncing off the polished wood walls. Her high heels clicked aggressively against the floor as she leaned across the table toward her lawyer. "Tell me this isn't happening." Her lawyer, eyes wide, whispered quickly, "Nora, calm down. These are federal indictments. Wire fraud, tax evasion, embezzlement. Federal, she shrieked. This is impossible. I signed papers. I had everything. He gave me everything." Donnie, sitting across from her, remained motionless, his hands folded neatly on the table. His eyes never left hers, calm and calculating, watching the storm unfold without reacting. The courtroom's silence was complete, almost reverent, as if the air itself was holding its breath. The judge, expression unreadable, lifted a hand slightly. "Mrs. Hale, please. You may respond after the attorney explains the charges." Nora's lawyer opened the folder, skimming through pages rapidly, voice low but firm. "These documents list multiple offenses committed through Hale and Son Plumbing over the past 3 years. Transfers, fake invoices, shell companies, unauthorized checks. The signature evidence ties you to them. Your control of the business makes you legally responsible for these actions." Nora shook her head violently, hair whipping across her face. No, this is a mistake. This can't be real. Vance did it, Vance. He manipulated everything." "Hush," her lawyer snapped, though he looked uncertain, the weight of the federal documents pressing on him too. Donnie's voice broke the silence, low but precise. "You did it too, Nora. You signed the checks. You approved the transfers. You controlled the accounts." Her head snapped toward him, eyes blazing. You knew? You let me sign? You let me—" "Yes," he said quietly. "I let you take what you thought was yours. You inherited everything you created. Legally, financially, criminally. That's the difference." The room felt charged, as though every person present sensed the magnitude of the moment. Friends, family, strangers, all witnesses to the unraveling of a life built on manipulation and greed. Some gasped quietly. Others leaned forward, unable to look away. I don't understand," Nora screamed, voice breaking. Tears streaked down her face, mascara smearing in dark rivers across her cheeks. "I had everything. He gave me everything. Not everything, Donnie said softly. You took everything on paper. But what you didn't see, the evidence, the crimes, the trail, was always yours the moment you claimed it. That's how it works. Her lawyer opened his mouth, hesitant, unsure whether to challenge Donnie's calm. But the truth was evident in the documents he held. Every invoice, every transaction, every falsified payment had her fingerprints on it. She had wanted the business. She had demanded control. She had signed her own liability. Nora's body trembled, not with rage this time, but with the sudden, sharp sting of reality. She had thought she was winning, ascending, taking control of the life that belonged to her husband and children in her eyes. Now, she realized she had signed herself into consequences she had never imagined. No, she whispered, barely audible now. The voice that had been confident, demanding, untouchable, now shrank to a frightened tone. This can't be happening. I didn't. The judge cleared his throat. Mrs. Hale, the evidence is clear. Federal authorities will proceed as per the indictments. You're responsible for the financial crimes conducted under your control. Your signatures and authorization confirm legal responsibility. The words hung in the room like iron chains. Nora's hands flew to her face, pressing at her temples, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. She stumbled slightly, caught herself on the table, and turned to face Donnie. Her eyes, wide and wild, searched for anger, blame, vengeance, but found none. He simply sat there, composed, calm, untouchable in his quiet justice. You set me up, she shouted, voice raw and hoarse. I didn't set you up, Donnie said softly. You set yourself up. I gave you exactly what you wanted. But the law doesn't lie. You inherited your own crimes. Her lawyer leaned forward, voice low, shaking slightly. Nora, the court will recognize cooperation, but he trailed off, unable to finish. The gravity of the situation left even him speechless. She dropped her hands from her face, tears streaming, lips trembling. The realization hit her fully, like ice flowing through her veins. Every demand, every manipulation, every attempt to control the narrative had backfired spectacularly. She had taken everything, and yet lost more than she could imagine. The courtroom watched silently. No one moved. No one whispered. Every eye was fixed on her unraveling, not in cruelty, but an acknowledgement of justice being carried out without vengeance, without theatrics, simply through truth. Donnie remained seated, calm and poised, as if this moment, the revelation, the collapse of her carefully constructed world, was exactly the outcome he had planned all along. Nora's breathing came in uneven, shallow bursts. She pressed the folder to her chest, hands shaking violently. The initial victory she had felt, the thrill of power, the smug satisfaction, all vanished in the harsh light of exposure. She had won it all, and in taking it, she had taken herself straight into the consequences. The courtroom remained silent, a testament to justice unfolding, measured, precise, and unstoppable. The truth had been delivered, and nothing else was needed. Chapter 13, The Cost of Greed. The courthouse lobby smelled faintly of polished stone and stale coffee. Vance Odom sat quietly in a small holding area, hands cuffed in front of him, expression resigned. When the federal prosecutor entered with a folder of documents, Vance's shoulders slumped further. He knew there was no escape. 3 years of careful manipulation, fraudulent transactions, and lies had come crashing down in a single indictment. Mr. Odom, the prosecutor said firmly, your plea agreement has been prepared. Plead guilty, and your sentence will be mitigated. Fail, and you face maximum penalties. Vance nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the folder. I understand. In the courtroom, the process was swift. The judge read aloud the charges: wire fraud, embezzlement, and falsifying financial records. Vance did not argue. He did not protest. He merely signed the paperwork, acknowledging each count and accepting the sentence. The gavel struck, finalizing the plea. Federal prison awaited him, a stark consequence for decisions made without conscience. Outside, Nora Hale sat quietly, folder in hand, staring blankly at the marble floor. The court clerk approached with a similar set of documents. This time, it was her plea deal, an offer to mitigate the consequences she could no longer deny. Probation, restitution, and community service. Anything to avoid prison time. Her attorney whispered, "It's the best we can get, Nora. You have to accept it." She exhaled shakily, nodding. I don't have a choice, do I?" "No," he said gently. "The evidence is overwhelming. The federal agents, the audit, everything points to you. You cooperate, and you minimize the consequences. Refuse, and—" He left the rest unsaid. The courtroom had become quiet, the tension palpable. Nora signed the paperwork slowly, her hands trembling, eyes flicking to Donnie once before looking away. There was no satisfaction in her glance, no triumph, only recognition of loss. Meanwhile, outside the courthouse, news crews documented the collapse of Hale and Son Plumbing. The business, once a respected family name in the community, was now dissolved, assets seized by federal authorities. Trucks were repossessed, office equipment auctioned, and client contracts transferred to other companies. Social media buzzed with articles and commentary, the narrative clear. A household built on greed and deceit had imploded. Friends who had once envied her lifestyle now whispered behind closed doors. Former colleagues avoided contact. Invitations vanished. The community that had once celebrated her success now regarded her with quiet distance, suspicion, and judgment. Social collapse was not dramatic in headlines, but in daily whispers, absence of support, and the cold look of acquaintances. The most painful blow, however, was not financial or social. It was familial. Donnie had navigated the fallout carefully, ensuring that Maisie and Theo remained shielded from the worst of it, but the implications of Nora's plea deal and criminal record could not be entirely avoided. Custody arrangements were revisited by the family court, with the judge noting that Nora's legal troubles and the destabilization of her financial situation made her an unreliable primary guardian for the children. Donnie sat quietly in his attorney's office afterward, reviewing the new custody agreement. Maisie and Theo would remain primarily under his care, with Nora allowed supervised visitation. He read the documents twice, ensuring the children's best interests were protected. The court's decision was measured, fair, and grounded in reality. Boyd watched Donnie closely, shaking his head slightly. "It's brutal," he murmured. "She really lost everything." Donnie's expression was calm, unshaken. "She took it all," he said softly, "and now she's paying the cost." Hugh added, "It's remarkable, really. Not just that justice was served, but that you kept your head through all of it. Most men would have exploded months ago." Donnie shrugged lightly. "Patience," he said quietly. "Planning. Understanding what really matters. The business? The house? Those are secondary. The kids, their stability, that's primary. That's the war. Everything else, collateral." Boyd exhaled, finally letting a hint of relief show. "It's strange, seeing her fall like that. Part of me feels sorry. But part of me, I knew it would happen. I just didn't know it would be this clean." Donnie leaned back in his chair, glancing out the window. The sun reflected softly off the city buildings, a normal morning carrying on as if none of the drama had existed. "Clean is relative," he said. "It's never neat when people get hurt. But it's real. That's what counts. No theatrics, no vengeance, just truth and consequence." The accountant's reports, the court filings, the seized assets, all confirmed that Nora's empire of lies had been dismantled, legally and irreversibly. There was no gloating, no celebrations, just quiet acknowledgement of a system functioning as it should. Truth measured, crime punished, victims shielded. Donnie gathered the documents, stacking them carefully. Boyd watched him, admiration mixed with lingering disbelief. "You handled it perfectly," he said. Donnie nodded. "Not perfectly," he corrected softly. "Realistically. That's enough." Outside the courthouse, the world moved on. The trucks were gone, the signs removed from storefronts, the employees dispersed. Hale and Son Plumbing was no more. Social collapse, legal consequences, and the public record had done their work. And in the center of it all, Donnie focused on what mattered most, ensuring Maisie and Theo remained untouched by the greed and mistakes of their mother. The cost of greed had been paid fully, financially, socially, and legally, but the children's lives were safeguarded. Justice had been served without cruelty. Pain had occurred, but only as necessary. Lessons had been delivered, clear and unyielding. Nora had taken everything, and in doing so, she had inherited the consequences. Chapter 14, Starting Clean. The morning air carried a crisp promise as Donnie unlocked the doors of his new plumbing office. It wasn't the sprawling space of the old Hale and Son plumbing, but it was clean, bright, and entirely his own. A fresh coat of paint gleamed under the sunlight, and the scent of polished wood mixed with faint industrial cleaner. The faint hum of a new beginning lingered in the air, quiet but undeniable. Donnie ran his hand along the counter, taking in the details, the neatly labeled files, the carefully arranged tools, and the new sign above the door. Hale Plumbing and Solutions. It was simple, unassuming, honest, a reflection of what he wanted this new chapter to represent. The door chimed softly as the first familiar face appeared. Marcus, one of his longtime crew members from the old company. "Donnie," Marcus asked cautiously, eyes scanning the new space. This is yours." Donnie turned with a faint smile, the kind that was neither boastful nor shy. "It's ours," he corrected. "If you're in, it's ours together." Marcus's jaw relaxed, and a small grin broke through. "Count me in. Been waiting for this, man. Been waiting to work with someone I can trust again." One by one, others began arriving. Tom, Eddie, and even Luis, each handshakes and smiles filling the small office with energy. They hadn't just returned for a paycheck. They were returning to work for a leader they respected, a man who had weathered storms and emerged intact, grounded in integrity. Boyd appeared shortly after, carrying a thermos of coffee. "Morning," he said with a grin, though the lines around his eyes betrayed fatigue. "Looks like the old crew still believes in you." "They do," Donnie said simply. "They know where loyalty matters. And I've learned that loyalty has to be mutual." The phones began ringing almost immediately. New clients curious about the freshly established company, and old clients who had respected Donnie's reputation even after the scandal. Each call was handled with professionalism, patience, and honesty. Word of mouth spread quickly, fueled by the simple fact that Donnie was back, untainted by drama, focused solely on service. Maisie and Theo came bounding into the office mid-morning, school bags in tow. Their laughter echoed through the newly painted walls, light and buoyant, carrying the weight of normalcy Donnie had fought so hard to preserve. He crouched to greet them, ruffling Maisie's hair and high-fiving Theo. "How's my crew?" he asked, smiling. "We're good," Maisie said cheerfully. "And we like the office. It's different, but good different. Better different," Donnie corrected, standing and looking around. "This is our clean start." Mother arrived shortly after, arms folded with a mixture of pride and mild concern. "Donnie, you've rebuilt from almost nothing. I was worried for a time, but," she gestured around the room, "you've done it. You've really done it." Donnie smiled faintly. "It's not just me. Family, friends, loyal crew, everyone matters. And we're building something honest this time. Something that can't be stolen, manipulated, or destroyed by greed." The day moved forward with the rhythm of progress. Orders were placed, calls returned, and schedules organized. Donnie walked the shop floor, nodding at each crew member, answering questions, offering guidance. There was no drama, no lingering bitterness, only focus, discipline, and purpose. By afternoon, the first client arrived, an elderly man whose kitchen sink had been leaking for months. He hesitated, unsure of this new company, but Donnie's calm professionalism quickly put him at ease. Within an hour, the leak was fixed, the client's concerns addressed, and payment processed with a simple handshake. Word of mouth began to spread instantly. Donnie was back, and he was reliable, honest, and efficient. Boyd watched him from the back office, shaking his head slightly. "It's impressive," he said quietly. "You're starting over, but better, stronger. And everyone's following because they believe in what you stand for, not just the money. Donnie leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, a small smile tugging at his lips. Exactly. The past was complicated, but this is clean, clear, ours to shape. Even in the evening, as the office lights dimmed and the last client left satisfied, there was a sense of accomplishment that went beyond business. Donnie gathered his crew, sitting them down for a brief debrief. Today was good, he said, but tomorrow will be better. We're not just fixing pipes, we're building trust. Reputation doesn't come from words. It comes from action, consistency, and integrity. His crew nodded, some smiling, some silent, but focused. They understood. They had witnessed the chaos, and now they were part of something real, something lasting. Later, Donnie sat at his desk alone for a moment, sipping a cup of lukewarm coffee. He looked at the empty office, the sun setting outside, painting the walls in gold and amber. The weight of the past lingered briefly in his chest, but it was light compared to the freedom he now felt. He had rebuilt, yes, but he had done it on his own terms, with his family intact, his integrity uncompromised, and his reputation slowly, steadily spreading. Maisie and Theo's laughter drifted from the corner play area. Boyd and Marcus were organizing tools and schedules, and the office phone rang again, a new client. Donnie picked it up, calm and professional, ready to face the challenges of tomorrow. The mistakes, betrayals, and chaos of the past had been lessons, harsh but clear. They had shaped him, tempered him, and allowed him to start clean. The business would grow. Reputation would flourish. Family would heal. And Donnie knew, quietly and confidently, that this time the foundation was unshakable. For the first time in years, he felt at peace. Clean, honest, whole. And it was just the beginning. Chapter 15, What She Couldn't Take. The late afternoon sun poured through the windows of Donnie's new home, bathing the living room in a soft golden light. The house was modest, yet warm, filled with laughter, clutter, and the unmistakable sense of family restored. Maisie and Theo were sprawled on the floor with a stack of building blocks, constructing towers and bridges with the kind of intensity only children possess. Donnie watched them quietly from the couch, mug of coffee in hand, savoring a rare moment of peace. Boyd had gone home after helping organize the garage tools, and the house was calm in a way that felt almost sacred. Donnie's mind wandered briefly to the past, the betrayals, the deceit, the courtroom drama, and he felt none of the bitterness that might have been expected. The storm had passed. What remained was clarity. Maisie looked up from her block tower, eyes wide. "Dad, why did Mom do all those things?" Donnie set his mug down, joining her on the floor at eye level. "Sometimes, people make choices that hurt others," he said carefully. "It doesn't mean they're bad people all the time, but it does mean they were wrong in those moments." Theo, perched precariously atop a leaning tower, frowned. "But she got everything. She should be happy now, right?" Donnie shook his head gently. "That's the thing, buddy. You can have all the things you think you want, but some things can't be taken, and some things can't be bought. Integrity, trust, family. Those are worth more than money, more than a house, more than any car." Maisie tilted her head, processing. "So, she took the house and the cars, but she couldn't take you?" Donnie smiled softly, ruffling her hair. "Exactly. She couldn't take me. She couldn't take your mom's love for you. Oh, wait. You know she's your mom too, but the truth is she can't take what matters most, the love, the honesty, the things that make us who we are." Theo's tower wobbled dangerously, and he reached to steady it. "So we still have us." Donnie nodded, feeling a warmth spread through him. "Always. That's what matters." He leaned back, stretching and glancing around the room. It was filled with reminders of resilience. The new furniture arranged carefully, the walls painted with their own hands, family photos that told stories of small victories and simple joys. Each detail a silent testament to what survives betrayal and hardship. Maisie and Theo looked at him seriously, sensing the gravity in his tone. "Dad, do you forgive Mom?" Maisie asked tentatively, curiosity laced with concern. Donnie paused, thinking carefully. Forgiveness did not mean condoning, excusing, or or forgetting. It meant understanding, releasing the corrosive hold of anger, and moving forward without hatred. I do, he said quietly. I forgive her for the choices she made. But that doesn't mean I forget them. We remember mistakes, so we don't repeat them, so we learn. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself, not the other person. Maisie nodded, as if weighing the concept, while Theo climbed onto Donnie's lap, resting his head against his father's shoulder. I get it, Theo mumbled. We can still be happy. Donnie hugged him close. Yes, we can, and we will be. Happiness isn't about what people take from you. It's about what you keep inside. Your character, your courage, your love, those are yours forever. The children sat quietly for a moment, processing, their small hands intertwined with his. Donnie felt a deep sense of fulfillment. For months, he had been focused on strategy, justice, and careful planning. Now, he realized that the true victory wasn't in the courtroom or the business. It was here, in these quiet moments, passing lessons to the next generation. He looked at Maisie, then Theo, and said softly, life will throw challenges at you, bigger than anything you can imagine. People might betray you. Things might be taken from you. But if you hold onto your integrity, if you treat others with honesty and kindness, if you act with patience and care, nothing can ever truly take you down. Maisie leaned against his arm. So, the bad stuff, it doesn't get to win. Exactly, Donnie said. You might feel the sting of betrayal. You might lose things you thought were yours. But what she, or anyone, cannot touch is your character, your dignity, your love for those who matter. That's what survives. That's what lasts. He leaned back, letting the words settle, feeling a calm he hadn't experienced in years. The chaos of betrayal, the long months of legal battles, the public spectacle, all had faded into memory. What remained was quiet strength, love, and the knowledge that true victory was internal, not external. Theo yawned, exhausted from play and the weight of conversation. Maisie curled up beside him, and Donnie gathered them both into his arms. Sleep well, you too, he whispered. The world is full of challenges, but we're ready. Together. He looked around the room one last time, eyes tracing the walls, the photos, the small signs of a life rebuilt. No one could take this. No one could touch the lessons learned, the love shared, the values instilled. For Donnie, this was closure, quiet and complete. No triumphant gestures, no revenge or celebrations. Just life, lived with integrity, resilience, and love intact. And as he held his children close, he realized the truth he had been teaching them all along. Some things can never be stolen. Character survives betrayal. Integrity endures. Love remains. And in that quiet, golden-lit living room, the storm of the past finally settled.